Welcome to another Anglo-Zulu War. Just before the video starts, I just want to say we are so close to hitting 100 subs on the History channel. Yes, I have two. There's a gaming one right here, link to it in the description. I would be ecstatic if we could hit, the 100 subs before the next video, which is going to be the Battle of Hlobane. And with that, welcome to the video. If you haven't already, watch the previous two, Isandlwana and rorkes draft, to get more context on this war and this battle right here. Isandlwana is quite important for this, but without any further ado, welcome to the Battle of Kambula. On January 22nd, the disaster of Isandlwana overtook the central column. When news of the defeat arrived, both southern and northern column commanders paused to assess the situation. Colonel Charles Person encamped at Ishoni and was eventually besieged by the Zulus. Further north, Colonel Evelyn Wood was preparing to move against a Zulu force based on a flat top mountain called Hlobane. But he called that off when news of Isandlwana had reached him, and he retreated to set up a fortified camp on a steep-sided plateau named Kambula. A lager of wagons tightly locked together by chains was formed and a stone cattle corral was built, both of which was ringed by trenches and earth parapets. A stone redoubt was erected on the summit. A palisade blocked the gap between the corral and the redoubt, and 4 7-pounder field guns defended the northern approaches. Under Wood's command, there was 1,238 infantrymen, 638 mounted men, and 121 Royal Engineers and Royal Artillery, but 88 were ill and unable to fight. Eventually, Colonel Wood, with none of the Zulu reinforcements he had anticipated having turned up, he decided to tackle the force at Hlobane, and on 28th of March, he attacked, but with impeccably poor timing, as a sizable Zulu impi force arrived. Wood's men were driven off back to Kambula. There, Colonel Wood and his 2,000 men again waited. The Zulus before Kambula were under orders not to attack, but to try and attempt to provoke Colonel Wood to come out into an open ground battle to fight, where their superior numbers and greater understanding of the ground would give them an advantage. However, Lieutenant Colonel Redvers Buller led a daytime assault to provoke a superior Zulu force into attacking the British camp instead, and after returning to camp he realised that 3 of his men were missing. So, what did he do? He, without hesitation, returned to the scene and brought them back to camp, with Zulus less than 100 to 200 yards away from them. The provocation worked, and the Zulus set their eyes on the British camp, and by 12:45 PM the British defenders were ready and awaited the Zulus. Colonel Wood had drilled his men to be in positions in less than 2 minutes, so he insisted that they ate a meal before going into action. The tents were struck and reserve ammunition distributed as the Zulu impi drew closer, in 5 columns composed of 9 regiments, the majority of whom had fought at Isandlwana. Many of them were armed with Martini Henry rifles taken from the dead Brits from that battle, but had picked up some debuffs along the way, as they had not eaten since leaving Hlobane, the Zulu capital, and were tired from jog trotting for 3 days. Colonel Wood knew that those who had fought Isandlwana arrived in the vicinity the day before the battle and slept the night concealed in a nearby valley, so they had enough time to recover after the long trek from Hlobane. But today, the enemy would be denied the advantage of a rest period, so another unnecessary debuff. Colonel Wood agreed with Lieutenant Colonel Buller's suggestion that he should take 30 men of his own mounted troops to provoke the Zulus again. When a gap was open for them, they rode straight at the right horn, dismounted at a few hundred yards, and fired 1 volley. The effect was instantaneous. Around 20,000 Zulus sprang up and swarmed forward with a mighty roar as the Frontier Light Horse Cavalry unit fled back with Asenge brandishing warriors in hot pursuit. Unfortunately for 3 horsemen, a wide patch of swampy ground slowed down their steeds, and they were cut down and speared to death. The infantry went into action when Buller's men returned, and they fired a concentrated volley. The 7-pounder guns caused havoc with exploding shrapnel shells, checking the Zulu advance at 300 yards. Direct fire from riflemen in the lager and redoubt soon forced the Zulus to fall back to the cover of a rocky outcrop in the northeast. With their strategy disrupted, the Zulus were unable to complete the encirclement of the Kambula camp, allowing the garrison in the northern and western areas to repel the Zulu advance from the opposite quarter. At 12:15 PM, the Zulu left and centre again attempted to develop their attack, using dead ground below the ridge to the south and unfazed by the heavy fire. They came at the defenders in a series of waves, inspired by the belief of spiritual protection offered by rituals and medicines. They threw themselves recklessly at the barricades but were then mowed down by shrapnel and volley fires from the infantry defending the lager's south face. At one stage, some Zulus breached the outer defences and charged down the plateau to attack the entrenched positions. A few reached the lager wagons and crawled between the wheels only to be bayoneted or shot to death. Wood, who had stationed himself between the lager and redoubt, was not against taking part in the fight himself and was restrained by his officers when he attempted to go and aid a wounded trooper who had been shot outside the redoubt. Minutes later, seeing that Private William Fuller, a member of his personal escort, was unsuccessful in trying to kill a Zulu commander, he grabbed the rifle from Fuller and, aiming it then down his feet, dropped him with a single bullet to the stomach. Wood is then reported to have fired again at other Zulus and then returned the rifle to Fuller with instructions to adjust the sights. So, just aura farming. About 40 Zulus with rifles climbed to the rim of the ravine and began firing down at the defenders in the cattle corral, forcing their withdrawal into the redoubt. Helped by a thick smokescreen from 100 of black powder cartridges, Zulus took control of the corral until Wood ordered 2 companies of the 90th Light Infantry to retake it with a bayonet charge. Although hampered by hundreds of terrified oxen, the troopers pushed a wagon out of the way to provide a clear run, formed a line of bayonets, and forced the Zulus back into the ravine. The attack on the redoubt was likewise repulsed at 3 PM, and as the Zulus withdrew, gunners of the Royal Artillery poured down rounds directly into them. The retreat gave riflemen an opportunity to spread out along the crest to unleash their own deadly volleys at the Zulus below. However, a few stubborn Zulu groups attempted more charges at the British line, but they were easily cut down. About 5:30 PM, when the Zulus were getting away, Colonel Wood sent Buller and a 3 companies of mounted colonials in pursuit, and the retreat became a rout. Riders enacted a savage revenge for Isandlwana and every single dead friend they'd lost on the retreating Zulus. The Frontier Light Horse Cavalry unit were followed by infantry and African auxiliaries on foot, who had combed the field and killed many Zulus who were lying wounded or hidden. The chase continued for several miles, and the bloodbath only ended at sunset when it began to rain. In the end, the estimated Zulu death count was 2,000, while the British and their allies lost a mere 83. And with word that another invasion was happening, the Zulu chances were not looking good, and that's the end of the battle. Kambula was a decisive and crucial battle of the war. It nullified the Zulu victory at Isandlwana, and even though in previous battles we've seen that the Zulus' technological inferiority meant nothing at Isandlwana as they decimated unorganised troops, and also at the previous Hlobane where they were just outnumbered and also a bit got lucky as well. People always like to say, oh, guns versus spears, but in each video you can see why that's not the case. This video, the British won while being wildly outnumbered due to their fortified position. Spears lose the guns, but when you have 20,000 Zulus, it doesn't really fucking matter. Goodbye and subscribe.
That's my job. That's my job.